Greg J. Brandon Tancat.
Here.
Bryce Howell.
Here.
Is there any additions or deletions from the agenda? Do I have a motion to accept the agenda as printed?
I'll motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Approval of minutes from September 13th, regular meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Claims and transfers.
From the general, $154,439.41.
Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
From water, $44,587.33.
Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
From wastewater, $62,019.79.
Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Payroll.
$49,951.20.
I will go ahead and make a motion for that. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Communications. Town Marshal?
We're fast approaching 4,000 calls for service. So we're staying active and staying busy. One thing I want to bring up tonight is we have an opportunity to bring on a part-time officer. Her name's Caitlin Browning. She's a former IMPD officer. She's got over 700 hours of training in the field that we're wanting to bring her on as a part-time employee as. For now, she'll be paid out of the prosecutor's enforcement fund. What she brings to us is she's already done a lot of detective work, evidence collecting. Will help backfill Rick's position as a crime scene and evidence handler. Get rid of evidence that needs to be, that's up for destruction. And she's already been trained in this through IMPD.
She's already been to the academy too, hasn't she?
Correct.
So she's all paid through the prosecutor, so nothing's coming through the town.
Correct.
I'll make a motion, we table this for the executive session after, as there's part of the questions we need to ask that don't need to be public knowledge.
We would have to advertise another executive session, because that was on the agenda. But you could just table the hiring of this person. And we could, if you want to let me know what questions you have, I can get that information.
Well, there's a $50 fee that ILEA had charged us to obtain for training
Right.
that we'd like to see paid by the town.
But I don't think the town can pay expenses of somebody that's not an employee, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, they're not ever an employee until they're sworn. And we done it with Virgil because we had to obtain a training packet from him so he could fulfill his.
I know we send new hirees to get the training, but what made this different that we paid for training or trying
Well,
to get?
it's not, the only thing different with her than most is she's coming on as a part-time employee rather than a reserve. When we changed the SOPs for the reserves, That was because the reserves would come on, get the training, and then bolt out someplace else. So we thought, well, to keep them around, we'll have them pay the $50 themselves. If they stick around a year, then we'll reimburse them. This is totally different. We can't swear her until we get the training records.
What was the
Fulfillment.
700 hours of training she already had?
That was through IMPD as a evidence collector and evidence handler and detective side. That was all within IMPD.
This is to get her recertified, isn't it?
Yeah, she's been recertified, but it cost us $50 to obtain her certification back.
So
You're getting a full-time or a merit type officer for basically $50.
So essentially, she can become an employee when she's sworn in. And the only way we can swear her in is by having her records, which costs $50, so say we were to go hire you tomorrow. The town would pay that $50 and then swear you in. That's how that would work?
Correct.
Then I don't see any reason why it's different now. And if she's part-time or full-time, she's still a town employee, correct?
Well, we've had some other issues with the reserve not being considered an employee. I guess, what was the
It's an ILEA fee to obtain the training package, because when you're out, when you resign from a position as a police officer, after a period of time, you have to get so many hours of training depending on the extent of the time. She had minimal separation time, so her fee was minimal. It was only $50 to obtain, updated to get her, and she took all them classes that she had to take to obtain her merit status again.
Okay, I guess I'm just, so if I come to you and say I'd like to be a police officer with the town of Cloverdale, and I'll have the training, so you're not hiring me until you get that. Explain to me the logistics on how that works.
As a merit or as a reserve?
Both.
Okay, as a reserve, you're brought on, you pay the $50 to go to your 40-hour pre-basic, then you get sworn in, and
Who pays that $50?
as a reserve, the reserves initially do, because we changed the SOPs, last year, I think it was, just because we was having them get our training and then go into another agency.
Yeah.
And this way, it kind of give them a little bit
If
of,
she's coming on as a merit, or as a,
she would be merit status,
Okay.
because she is a police officer. I mean, she's at the Tier 1 academy.
Well, she'd be compensated where the reserves are not, correct?
Correct.
yeah, I was under the impression we couldn't pay for non-employees. We couldn't pay for non-employees.
Well, you're not paying them directly, you're paying the
We're
law
still paying
enforcement
money for
academy.
Correct, we're still paying money towards a non-employee, that's fine. But if you're telling me we can do that, then,
I mean,
I asked the State Board of Accounts, I told them it would be right, that there was an intention to hire, and they said they couldn't do a charge until they were officially hired.
so the charge is premature,
Yes, you just have to wait until they're actually hired, then you can.
But can we swear them in without being hired, and can we swear them in without having that certification?
I don't know any of that.
what's our SOPs, does it allow that?
well, I mean, you can swear in anybody, I mean, they don't have to have the training or not, but what we're looking at is a police officer with substantial amount of training already and a substantial amount of road time for $50, and she's on board.
So then why can't we just swear her in? She becomes that part-time employee, and then we can approve the charge.
But we've got arrangements to swear her in tomorrow at 1.
So then can I make a motion? We swear her in tomorrow at 1 PM. After that, we approve the $50 fee.
Yeah, as long as we can pay it post. What did the State Board of Accounts say exactly?
I don't have the email.
Or
in front of me.
ballpark.
Yeah, it was, they said
It was incurred.
Anything, any charge that was made on the town's credit card or to the town's account, a town account, someone who was not an employee would be considered a personal charge, and the person who made that charge would be responsible for it.
So since the charge occurred while it wasn't an employee, that's the problem.
See, and
Yes.
she herself can't contact ILEA as Caitlin Browning and acquire the stuff that she needed. She has to be supported by a department or a town marshal.
So you could have
which-
hired her and then requested it, correct?
Well, we've been having some issues getting her sworn in. I mean,
Basically, you did hire her,
yes.
But she's not technically hired till she's sworn in.
and you also found out this week.
Usually the swearing process comes in after they've obtained either the 40-hour pre-basic or the completion of their catch-up hours from ILEA.
So when we hired Virgil before he left, what was the process there? We hired him, we paid his $50, and then we swore.
I don't know what, I can't speak on that. I know he was hired, he was on the road, and he was allowed a certain amount of time to, I think he had 400 or 800 hours he had to make up because he had been out of it 3 years.
I'll go back to make my previous motion. I'll motion, we swear her in tomorrow at 1, and the town pays the $50 fee.
Second.
All right, and,
We did vote.
Oh, sorry.
sorry.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, can we get a new salary ordinance, because there's not that position? So how, I guess I need to know how to make that out, like what the salary's gonna be, and you said part-time, so I got that.
When you said her salary would be paid through the,
Yes. Same as the
Oh, so
other,
the salary
same
is paid
as,
for
same as
that.
the other part-time we had.
So the town's
actually-
not incurring any
Oh,
cost.
the same as the other, then, I mean, the prosecutor's office pays us, and then we use that to pay. Okay, so we will need a position on the salary ordinance. Okay, so what is the salary that the council intends to give, or the prosecutor?
Apparently, you had some discussions with her.
Steve and I have, yeah, and they were based on 22 an hour.
Okay, and this is gonna come from whatever?
Yes.
Typically, how this is done in the past, the prosecutor gives us the state work accounts, and we put it into the general, and then we keep track of it from there. Okay, it's the same as the other one. And her title, what's the job title?
That'll be deputy marshal detective.
Okay, and then, so all the expenses are, I mean, I guess I need to know if all the expenses are paid, or like the training and all that, is that coming through the normal police budget, or is that gonna be covered by the prosecutor's office as well?
As far as what other
Uniforms.
expenses.
Training,
She
uniforms,
purchased her own
phone?
uniform. I haven't had any discussion about a phone.
Okay, fuel is another thing.
She doesn't have a car.
She will be working out of the office.
Okay,
most of
okay.
it. It's possible that she'll go out on it.
Well, and that brings up the second topic, that there's $1,500 that's earmarked for comp time. We'd like to be able to utilize that to pay her on our side, so she can get ready by training with Rick in the evidence side. Rick's health is hit and miss, we all know that, and from time to time, that's just a position you can't just do without or not fill immediately. I mean, it's a process to get somebody trained in evidence, and, I mean, Rick does everything. I mean, we'd like to take that $1,500 that's earmarked for the comp time and put it aside for maybe payroll to her when she, and it'll be coded differently for us to use so we can get her trained
trained with Rick.
with Rick. Yeah.
So you have like-
Destruction of evidence that needs to be destroyed, collection of evidence, the process, the step-by-step process, the way we do it, because it's gonna be obviously different than the way IMPD does it. So, we're just asking that we could get that 1,500 released, but I think we had it earmarked for comp time.
Yes, what are you using it for, salary or training, or what?
It'd be her be salary if she's utilized for the town.
If it's salary, that's fine, because it's already in that series for salary.
Yeah.
So we can use that.
It would be salary for her training with Rick to get up to speed on the evidence. That way, if something happens with Rick, God forbid, but if something happens, we have somebody already knowledgeable about the situation.
Is anybody else trained to handle it?
No. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar, Rick does
Everything.
security, he does all the computer work, he does all the evidence collecting, and, you know, he can't drive long distances, so we have to pay somebody comp time to take evidence up to Indy. This would alleviate all that, with her being allowed to do that.
So do we need to vote on that, or no?
Not for the 1,500, do we?
I don't think so, it's
No,
already earmarked
it's
for
already
salary,
on,
so
yeah.
you can use it.
Just make sure
Yeah.
you code it right in the,
Yeah, we've already discussed that with Rick, and Rick has two codes. One is for her original,
Yeah, as long as it's just a.
and then the secondary would be anything for the
is it
town.
the same hourly rate?
Yes.
And she can be used as a detective if need be.
Correct. That, long-term, that's what we're kind of trying, because that's what Rick did before he had his health issues, and we've got all the tools. We just don't have anybody to use them.
And reserve cars here mostly during the day.
Correct.
So any other expenses would just come out of the normal police budget, is that what I'm hearing?
Mhm.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any votes or anything, or can I go move on?
You can go.
Okay. Been a lot of talk, trick or treating, the chief has assigned October 29th from 5 PM to 9 PM. Also on October 29th, we have the Back Blue Chili Fest. It will be here from 10 AM to 5 PM. Any vendors, I think the chili's gonna be provided from CRC this year. We switch up every year, somebody new does it. There'll be entertainment, auctions and raffles, and the time will be 10 AM to 5 PM.
It's still 4.
My note's just 5. So it'll be 4 or 5. Usually it's the same time that trick or treating starts, so.
We decided to go forward to give a little bit of a breather between.
But other than that, I don't have anything.
For the chili fest?
10 to 4.
Okay. Just want to make sure I try to.
And again, Andy Rick's kicking in a bunch of stuff for raffle like he did last year. We'll have the raffle drawings and all that day. Good food, entertainment.
Is he raffling off a new car?
I wish. There will be a car there.
Do we know when those items, Adam, are gonna be in?
He usually delivers them, about a week before. Whenever, Andy usually just gives him the card and then he fills up his truck and brings it down. It's usually about a week prior, then we can post what we got. But, I mean, usually one of the police cars are always in it, grills usually always in it. Unless there's questions, I am done.
Okay. Any questions for you?
And I'm sure I asked this question last week, why is there only trick or treating one night?
Well, I don't know.
The reason I ask is for families of divorced families, it gives each side a chance to trick or treat.
I never asked that question, or heard anybody ask it.
I think he asked that last year.
I think, I still remember the answer, because I'm.
All I know is the chief assigns the dates and times, and whoever the chief is,
Yeah,
so
I just curious.
I'll ask him, get back with you on it. You want it 2 nights?
I'm okay. Yeah, I'll be okay. One night's perfect.
Okay, fire chief? And there's no fire chief, so town manager?
Mill Creek Meadows subdivision, obviously you've seen action down there. They're really close to having a home for sale. They had requested a variance on a setback. BCA was supposed to meet on that last Thursday, and we did not have a quorum, so it has been rescheduled for the 24th at 7 o'clock. Later in the agenda, you will have the opportunity to appoint a BCA member, because we have a couple resignations. So I would encourage you, if you can tonight, to at least get an appointee on that. But otherwise, it's still progressing. Water and sewer, Richard, you can probably tell them where how many of them are hooked to water right now?
We got 6 homes that are in or hooked up to the water and sewer. Turned on.
That's all I have there. Do you want to go to the next one, or?
No.
Utility relocation, this is the water and sewer line on 231 north of 70 on the Poet side of the road. We talked about this at the last meeting, that NDOT is going to be doing a widening project at 900 South. We have both a water and a sewer line that is in conflict with their construction plans. We do have to move our line. At the last meeting, you guys voted to contract with Curry Engineering. We met with Curry. Brandon was here at that meeting. Yeah, you were there, which meeting? Kind of heard some of what he had, his thoughts. Gave us some numbers, but he's since given me some new numbers, and so it's a little bit that he gave us that day. The cost to relocate the water line is $126,210, and these are just the engineer's estimates. And the engineer's estimate to relocate the water line was $233,905. With that, that did include us upgrading it to a 10-inch line, just in case there was ever future development up there. We thought it made sense. Richard, what, did we determine it was 6? No,
They say it's 8.
they say, but you think it's 6, correct? It's 6 or 8. We're not-
Coming into us is 8, that's what I was curious.
But we're thinking if there's future development, and at this point, this is the time to upsize it if we're going to, if we think development might go that direction. So the only thing you're doing is paying for additional, is the pipe. So with that, I calculated the return on investment. If the town of Cloverdale pays $233,905 for a water, to relocate that water main, and it's about a 100-year return on investment. And that's not even calculating interest. It's about 80 years for the sewer, so it's not a very good investment for us to relocate these lines. Now, I will say that I've had conversations with Kristen Clary and Mayor Dory about the possibility of using ready funds, because we believe there are going to be some additional ready funds available. Not to mention, this is outside the town limits. It's not in the town limits of Cloverdale. So it's possible we may be able to use ready funds, so we're going that avenue there to pay for this, and possibly even talking to the commissioners about the possibility of ready funds. So those conversations are being had at the moment. $233,000 just not reasonable. That doesn't make sense for us to do that without some other funds coming in to help us pay for that. So I'll let you know when that's all determined. That's all being discussed right now. But this is something that's going to happen, and we're going to have to discuss it fairly soon. But just wanted to let you know that's where we stand right now.
So with it not being in the city limits, is it our responsibility?
It's our water line, and it is our sewer line. I don't know, I mean, this could be a legal argument that we could decide whether we even want to provide water and sewer out there. I don't know that we're required to. Maybe since we already have, we may be required to, I don't know.
How many customers are on those lines?
It's long.
Pretty easy.
Well,
If you do a 10-inch line over the 6 or 8-inch line, how far back are you going to go?
From the highway, you're saying?
Well, where does this, is it a 6-inch from I-70?
No, this would, actually, this section would be a very, very small section, only from 900 South to the second entrance to Poet, the service entrance, is that what they call it, Richard? Or-
There's even from 800 south.
or-
900 is big road.
Oh, I'm sorry, 800 South, sorry about that, 800 South to, is that the service entrance, is that what they call that?
Quarter of a mile, eighth of a mile.
Yeah, it's not very far.
It wasn't very much.
But right now, our income from Poet, the town collects $158.25 a month for water and $125, roughly $125 in sewer. That actually fluctuates each month, but about $125 a month from the wastewater. So obviously, when you're spending $233,000, it's going to take a long, long time.
So 3,300 a month. That's basically what.
Gross.
Or 3,300 a year.
Yeah, probably. So you can see it takes a long, long time to come up with $360,000. So,
I could be mistaken something here, but was this the same situation we were talking about, maybe capping the line and paying for a well for this one structure or whatever? And was that the same deal we were having that discussion?
that is a possibility as well.
So that's the cheaper option, and we're basically gambling on expansion to help pay for this down the road. Some growth in the area, but that's a big gamble with a lot of money.
I would argue that has been talked about, so that's not been ruled out. We're just looking at other additional sources. And my conversations last Friday were, and there's nothing guarantees any of this, that of this 126 plus 233, 100 of it would come from county edit. The balance comes from Ready, and the town would be responsible for about $50,000, which is the engineering costs. Is what we just kind of put as a proposal. Again, none of that is finalized. That's all that's being discussed.
I think it would also, Dave, to elaborate a little bit more in the sense of being proactive, maybe enticing businesses to come if those utilities are already in place versus it being reactive and having to backpedal by them not being there. Just my 2 cents on that.
Okay.
There were other conversations along with this. There are other possibilities. If we were to terminate services, we talked about the possibility of drilling a well, or they can drill a well. For that matter, they've already got a well. Just have to treat, they've got 3 wells for that matter. Then possibly a septic system. So that was all discussed. But we've got some funding mechanisms that may take care of all of that for us.
Yes, until we know brass tacks what it's gonna cost the town, it's kind of a moot point.
Correct. I would just wanted to update you that this is where we stand on that. I don't know, we're throwing different options out there to see what will stay. The next, I'm sorry. I guess we should
Jim Steel tree?
Mr. Steele, I forwarded you the email. He has a tree there on South Lafayette Street. Without a survey, I can't determine whether it's, there is an alley between the 2 properties. Looking at GIS, it looks like it could be on the, on that alley. And when I say an alley, it's not a physical alley, it's just
It's a right-of-way.
right-of-way. I cannot determine whether it is without a survey, but it doesn't really make sense to pay to have a survey. It would cost as much to,
Take it down.
yeah. So, he made that request. I can't make that decision. Ultimately, that's your decision. It is a big tree. I think it's a beautiful tree, but
Have we received any quotes?
I have not.
Is that something town employees either have time to do or could do?
I don't,
It's that big?
Yeah. It's a big pine tree. But again, I don't know that it's even our responsibility.
Roughly, what's the survey cost?
15.
You can take the tree down for that.
You can take a tree down, I would hope for myself.
You want that? Unfortunately.
Maybe I got a good buddy deal.
And I don't know if there's anything that requires us, even if it is on our property, there's nothing that requires the town to take it down.
What is his reasoning for wanting to take it?
Because that's his house.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah. He's worried. What storm?
There have been some limbs come off of it, but honestly, I'm not a tree doctor, but it looks fairly healthy to me, but
Will this open Pandora's box if the town moves forward to take this down?
Yes.
Could, but shouldn't.
But if it's a threat, we should take it down. If we've been made aware of a threat, we should take it down.
It's a lot.
A legitimate threat. Because every tree's gonna come down, they don't get to it.
Well, if we can get it taken down for less than what a survey's gonna cost, and, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a healthy tree or not, the right storm, it's a threat.
Make a motion to, let's get some votes. Jason? Present at the next board meeting.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Weather siren repair.
I had contacted each of you a couple weeks ago, shortly after, just to get your thoughts on this. All verbally were supportive of it, but we did have a siren repair, the one by the old railroad depot that did fail. I'm sure woke a few of you up one morning, but the price to repair that was $3,221.62. I have asked them to start that repair, but obviously I'd like your blessing to do so. You can have it formally.
All motion.
I second.
All in favor? Aye. Recycle.
I had conversation with both Larry and Brandon at a budget meeting. We talked about whether we would apply for, or actually put money in the budget for a recycling grant that we could apply for. I did submit the application last Friday. We should know in December whether that gets approved or not. That was to pour concrete pad and move the recycling, potentially move the recycling bin to a different location. That application hasn't been submitted, so it'll be a couple months before we hear. But we requested $38,032. And that was through ITEM.
And you're done there, right? Water plant tanks. Some stable from last month.
Yeah, well, there's two parts to this, and I'm going to turn it over to Richard. But we do need to talk about something else that just came up on a couple of days ago with regards to plant two. So I'll let Richard kind of explain the tanks, or I think you probably got those under the invoices. Is that how you have that?
They're actually under, well, Richard's stuff is under old business. It's close to the end.
So is this the tank from last Thursday, what you got on the agenda?
Yeah, I think that's what we've got. And then you can talk about the invoices or however you
We
want
had
to,
a,
Richard.
yeah, we all want to be familiar with a spiroactor tank. It's where the sand and the chemical goes in to do the softening. It bursted a hole in the side of it last Thursday. It was blowing sand throughout the plant. So we got the, Bassett and Logan come out and welded it up and got it fixed, so we're back to going. But we're going to have to look into them and possibly see if we have to change. They talk like you can cut the bottom third of those tanks off and just replace the bottom third of the tank. So we're going to look into that. Keep that in mind that we're going to have some repair on the tank. The sand just simply wore a hole in it over 20 years. And it's right where the water sprays in, right across from. So a lot of action there in that area.
Do you have the video that you'd like to show them, Richard?
Would anyone like to see a video of sand blowing all over the
These
water plant?
tanks are really, really, really big tanks. And it's kind of frightening when you see that there's a hole in the tank this size.
Sure. It's blowing out there. And there was no stopping it until it got the water out and got done.
essentially, it's something we need to be aware of, but
Quite the mess.
We are gonna be fixing a couple parts on it, so when you don't inspect it, then, but I suspect, I mean, this had to have rusted all the way through, or sand was just eaten. That's thick steel.
Here's a picture, and what they'll do is like, this crossbar is probably a third of the way in. So they'll get the measurements and everything, go back, fab this part up, come in, take a lot of the stuff out, cut this, and fit it.
essentially that bottom third is what's taking the abuse. Right.
I was just probably for, I suspect this could be.
Yeah, I don't know what that. And we were going to replace where the water comes in, there's a diffuser that shoots it over to the side. And we looked at the one that's empty and it's pretty much decayed, so we're gonna get two of those made up and replace those. And when we have that open, we'll be able to tell what the number one tank looks like inside as far as that.
Anything else, Richard?
Do you wanna wait on the sodium pump and the?
Either way. You wanna go ahead with that?
Yeah, you guys have talked about, I got two sodium, the sodium is what goes inside that tank to do the softening. And we replaced one pump a year or so ago, and now we'd like to replace the other one. The one that's there is not working. Okay. So, I don't have the prices or anything, what the, and I get them through B.L. Anderson, and they're the,
4904.95.
And essentially, we replaced the last one's like in 19, right? And this one's from 2014?
2021.
no, I think you're on the well cleaning dates.
Yeah.
Yeah, this sodium pump has been the original, the one I want to replace is original
Yeah.
with the plant.
So it's 25 years old.
Then they'll both be the same, we can just keep spare parts for both of them. And the one we're using, I like it, it's a lot easier pump to work on, don't have a diaphragm.
Replaced it in 20.
What's the cost of that? 49?
4,904.95. Although that was
Yeah, it could be up a little bit.
quoted August 9th. It was supposed to be good for 60 days, so
Just barely.
this happens to us every time we do it.
I make a motion, we go ahead and replace the pump.
You can't make a motion. That's right. But that was subtle, and for the other people.
I will make a motion to replace the pump.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And the well cleaning, that's, there was different dates on, we've got 4 wells, and periodically, in 5 to 6 years, we'll clean 1 or 2. We've done 2 last year or the year before, and it's, I just thought we would get another one in there,
Because
so we don't get behind on
I remember the one last meeting was 2014.
it. Yeah.
The business clean? Yeah, 8 of 14. I'm 5 of 13.
Yes.
And the others were 8 of 21. 5 of 13 and 8 of 14.
I'll make a motion to get those clean.
Second that.
All in favor?
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Jason?
No.
Okay. Clerk treasurer.
You have the monthly reports in your packet. I don't see anything unusual on the revenue that was given to you. The appropriation, there's the same thing, I know like we talked about last time, the park operating expenses is done, but the park is pretty much done for the year, so that should be fine.
I do have one question. When is the rest of that mulch going to be spread out? Do we know?
We're looking for a location to put it.
Okay.
We have a location we want to put it.
Not at my place, no. That's what the, so, okay.
We've spread it everywhere in the park. We are gonna put a little bit of it from the park where the fire gardens are. That's all gonna be cleaned out. So that we will, if that's a place we look at when we place it.
What about, who is responsible, and I've thought this forever, who is responsible for the little park between the Tingles Lane and Gardens?
It is not owned by the town. I don't know if there was an interlocal agreement or not an interlocal agreement, but some type of
There's-
agreement with the property owner.
As far as I know, I haven't come across any actual paperwork agreement. What I've been told is well, I know, it's owned by somebody else, and the town put essentially what they call the pocket park on there, and it was supposed to be maintained by the school, the FFA. The A group at the school, that's all I know, but
I
there's
guess
no paper
if we're
documentation.
looking for a place to put mulch, I mean, I know several of our people that come to the arena make comments how bad that looks there.
It shouldn't anymore. We've removed all the flower beds there,
Okay.
and actually even benches have been moved to the park.
Okay, fair enough.
And we have been mowing it, although it honestly is probably not our responsibility to mow.
That's just comments I heard in the past. So
But it has
if we were
been-
looking for a place to go with mulch, that might have been.
If you got other ideas from that, we've still got a little left over, but we do need to move.
Also, like we talked about last month, the local road and street is done. All that money has been spent for the year that was budgeted. NVH, the service line, which is the engineering, a lot of the engineering is down to 11%. That's what's left for the year. And the police, their operating supplies, which is their fuel, and there's a couple Nelson's outstanding invoice, that's down to 16% left for the year. It's low, we should be at 25%. All the rest of the funds look fairly good coming to the end of the year.
Do you have places that you can pull funds for fuel from?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, their other line items is what, if there's money left, we will pull from that to use the tax dollars first. After that, we'll bring to council and you can decide what you want to do, if we want to take it from donations or where we want to take the extra from.
Okay, claims?
The first one is invoice from utility supply, invoice 1418181. Here.
Trade you.
It should be in order.
Which of you maybe don't be looking?
Replace some plants and we'll do some of the stuff for the circle, for the bushes.
Oak Creek, all the pushes, okay. It's
And
for
some of them are replacement plants.
$2,099. These are part of the Oak Creek. Do you want to do these individually, or how do you?
You have several that are connected. All of the utility supplies, that all?
Maybe,
3 of them.
are those all the same? And then the water.
Those are both for community groups.
Jokes out. That's the last of the Doe Creek. Doe Creek?
Yeah.
Okay, it's the last of the Doe Creek meter yokes. Those are the 3 for utility supply. So one is $2,099.75. The second is $4,764.36. The third is $2,382.18.
I make a motion to pay all 3 of the utility supply invoices.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Yeah.
Then we have Eco Infrastructure Solutions. We bought marking flags that are required when we locate utilities. The total was $1,875.
Make a motion to pay those.
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Next is Bobcat of Indianapolis. We had the Bobcat steer loader was repaired. We took it in for a rocker arm repair, but we also repaired a glass door as well. And the total was $3,209.03. That was on the skid steer.
I'll make a motion for the Bobcat invoice.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
And the last is UMAC. They emailed us to Kelly, I believe. I have not spoken with them about it, but they did reduce that invoice that I talked to them about. They said they would reduce it. It did reduce from $22,632.05, and I believe that's 20%. Is that what you said, Kelly? I didn't calculate it.
I don't know.
$18,105.64.
And what was that for?
Oh, it says on here, 20% discount. This is for the sewer for, oh shoot.
It was at the CRC for the stable.
The new barn, yeah.
Do I have a motion to pay this?
For the 18,105.64, I make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Was that water or sewer on that last?
That's sewer.
That was sewer.
Is that all I have there? Thanks, Richard.
That's it. Planning Commission.
You're welcome. According to Mackenzie's told me you need to be here.
We have a vacancy. Roy Lotz resigned. Do we have anyone who is interested in-house tonight? Okay. Do they not have a quorum now?
They have 3 of 5 are filled,
3 to 5, so they still have a quorum. So they're not dead in the water yet.
provided they all 3 show up. But I don't want to go through the same situation we had, because it's very expensive to advertise, and I spent half a day
Mhm.
redoing advertisements to go out.
Okay.
You couldn't have a meeting because not 3 of the 5 showed up.
And we had someone who was petitioning for a variance that is trying to continue the business, and he can't because we didn't have a forum.
Point of information, who's on that committee? I know I am, but I don't know who the others two are.
Are you talking planning or BZA?
Planning. Planning.
Planning.
Or planning.
Pretty what I just said.
Yeah, planning has one vacancy, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people still on planning.
Okay, do you know how many members it has now?
I'm one of them.
What's that?
Do you know how many members are on it?
She said 6.
Yes, there's 6 currently. It's a 7-member board, and Roy Watts resigns, so there's 6 still there.
Still leave 6? Okay. Board of Zoning Appeals. Roy Lotz was also on that. He did resign. Now, that's the one that you told me was planning. Oh, planning president will appoint that person.
Yes.
Okay. And we also had Judy Minor
Yes.
resigned. And I will appoint that person. And presently, I do not have anyone. And how many members, is that a 5-member board?
Yes, that's what Jason was speaking of earlier. It's a 5-member
Okay.
board, and 2 have resigned, so we're down to 3. and
3
it's-
members?
Yeah.
Okay. And Park Board has a vacancy. John Berry has resigned. Well, is he resigning 12/31?
He's resigning the end of December, so you'll be the replacement at that point. And also Lisa McKee, her term is up So I don't know if she's going to, if she'd be interested in running again or.
She has asked me to be reappointed.
She's asked what?
To be reappointed.
Yeah, can we vote on that?
But this term starting January the
Okay,
first.
so
But you
we-
can do it now.
I'll make a motion to reinstate her January 1.
I second that.
All in favor? Aye. Is that board also a 5-position board?
Her board is 4.
4. So that, they're actually down to 3 at this point.
Yes.
Before until John officially resigns.
Right. Okay, Redevelopment Commission. We have a vacancy. Rick Deerwester resigned. And that will be a town council appointment. And again, we're looking for volunteers. So if anyone knows anyone, you can't kick anyone in the ribs. Well, okay. Okay, the other is just basically information, correct?
Yes, their terms are up in December, so it's whether they want, you want to reappoint them or find somebody else, but those positions will all be up. Their redevelopment is 1-year terms.
Okay, do you want to do that tonight?
You can speak on yourself, but do we know everybody else still wants to be on?
Go ahead.
I still want to know who's on the planning commission. I know one of 3.
Planning Commission right now is Rachel Scott, James McKee, Roy Watts, myself, John Bailey, Greg J., Cindy Holland.
Okay. Yes, I will accept the position on the,
Then I will make a motion to reaffirm Larry.
Second that.
all in favor? Aye. I guess we'll skip Scott until we can talk with him. Brian, you're good? Do I have a motion to
I'll motion,
reappoint Brian?
I'll motion to reappoint Brian.
Second that.
All in favor? Aye. And David Fish is on the redevelopment also?
Yes, I would serve again.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
I will second it.
All in favor? Aye. And that brings us to stormwater.
Would you like to,
I will rerun.
then I will make a motion to reappoint you.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Putnam County Convention and Visitors Bureau. Laura Hatton, term is the 31st of December.
I've spoke with Laura and she'd like to run again.
Okay.
I will make the motion to reappoint her.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And that puts us to ordinances and resolutions. And we have ordinance 2022-6, sewer tap fee.
Okay, we're back to this ordinance, and this is what we've talked about for several months now. There have been a few changes as of the last couple of hours. We had a developer that was interested, and we just found out that the developer will not be doing a project in Florida. Mr. Shagley and I had a conference call with the developer and his folks, probably last an hour, maybe longer. Went through the ordinance that had been proposed back in February of this year. They were okay with all of the language. If they were planning to develop, they were okay with the language that we had in our ordinances. The only thing they were really trying to figure out is what exactly we were expecting of them. The one question that did come up that we really didn't have an answer for, well, two things. One, we had the fees where we had just put some fees in there, and these numbers were just fees based on other areas, municipalities that had tap fees and access fees, and that's kind of where I came up with this number. But other than that, there's no rhyme or reason for that, just other than it was a pretty good average. One thing that this developer, I feel pretty confident was supportive of one lateral per property. And for that matter, in our sewer ordinance, it says a separate and independent building sewer shall be provided for every building except where one building stands at the rear of another on an interior lot and no private sewer is available. So, and I understand we've got it already existing in some places in town where there are Ys that go to two properties. In our sewer use ordinance, that is not permitted. Now, obviously it's grandfathered. There's not a whole lot we're gonna do about that at this point. But this kind of addresses, this ordinance kind of addresses that issue. You know, we had a special meeting about this. We've talked about this for 6 months, 8 months now. It just depends on how you want to proceed with this. Now, one thing that's happened since then is when we had this ordinance, we had a second ordinance that was pertaining to the subdivision that was being developed, Doe Creek Meadows subdivision. And at that point, our conversations were under the assumption we were going to be adopting this ordinance at the same time as that other ordinance. Well, one of the things that's kind of got overlooked is this really needed to be adopted at the same time, because in that case down there, we were asking him to put in all the lateral himself, so he put in everything from the main, even the main, but the main, the lateral, and the lateral that's in the road. Well, it's really not a road, it's actually private at this moment. But what would be in our right of way once we obtain ownership, and from the right of way to the house. And at that time, the discussion was the access fee of $500 would be charged, but he does everything. But we adopted an ordinance that said everything in the right of way is our responsibility. And that's when we changed the fee. I know this sounds convoluted. Changed the fee to $17.50. Recommending a change to $17.50, and then a access fee of $500.
Well, that was because then we were responsible for everything in the right way, not.
Correct, because in our other ordinance, it says we are now responsible. But what we've never done is actually put anything in there. So our tap fees are still in place, what they should be, but we're responsible for the tap from the main to the right of way. So they really should have been adopted probably at the same time.
So basically, he probably spent money according to current ordinance?
Well, no, because it's really not in the right of way yet, because he still owns it.
Okay.
But I would argue that the tap fee would typically be $1,000. But there really wouldn't be a tap fee because he's not tapping onto our main, so that $1,000 really doesn't make sense to do a tap fee. So kind of what we agreed on at that time, he was still paying access fee. And that's why we did an access fee rather than just, right now we only have a tap fee. Or a connection charge, what we call, most towns call a tap fee. We have a connection charge of $1,000 in town. In that case, he's really not connecting to a sewer because he actually owns that sewer main. Until we take. So really, should he be charged the tap fee or connection fee? I would argue no, but he at the time was willing to pay the $500 access fee. And that's kind of where we came into this access fee realm, was so we would still collect something from him out there. But also any vacant lot in town that may have been vacant for the last 20 years, if they ever are able to connect back up to it, they would just pay an access fee. At least that's the way our ordinance here is written.
Which would be the 500 in town, 1,500 in town, if it was all up to code, correct?
Correct. But the ordinance still, this is where we've had, and really the big discussion on this is whether we would allow you to reactivate a sewer lateral that is made out of clay. This ordinance as written, now it's not been changed, but you can, it would not allow you to reconnect a clay sewer lateral back to a house. It would have to have a new plastic pipe. And when we were talking to this developer that was interested in developing several homes in Cloverdale, they wanted, and Mr. Shagley can verify this, they wanted nothing to do with the clay. They said, no, we're going straight to the main with plastic. We'll pay the fee, which was good to hear, but that was their thought. Now, I will say that developer is no longer, as of this evening, no longer planning to develop. But it did not dissuade them from this ordinance, and they've actually reviewed that ordinance as well.
So basically, the two hangups with the ordinance passing it right now is reactivating a clay lateral and then the fees, correct? Those have been the two hangups?
Well, and the Y lateral, and I put this together, I just threw another part in here, but this is not in what you're seeing. If we need to do one of two things. One, either add that you cannot reactivate a Y lateral, or we need to redo our sewer use ordinance where a separate and independent building sewer shall be provided for every building.
But essentially, if we added the relocating, or reactivating a Y lateral, same as reactivating a clay lateral.
Well, there may be some plastic that I don't know of, but I would guess most of them are clay, yes.
I mean, all new, but would be for reactivations of new builds, basically.
Reactivation doesn't mean, I sold my house, the new party moves in next week. Do they have to replace their lateral?
And we can define that better. That was not my, or at least my interpretation of this, is if there's no structure there now. If it's new construction, and that can be, and that's a valid point, it probably could have cleaned up. If it's a vacant lot, but it has a sewer lateral that has been used and maybe one want to set a period of time, where the house has been removed completely and has been sitting there for 20 years, somebody wants to build there, that lateral, if it's clay, would not be able to be used. Or that's what the original intent, but this is what you guys get to decide.
Good enough.
This proposal was up last month, and I objected to it last month, and I continue with that objection. That we have hundreds of clay tile crossovers in Stardust Hills that have been functional for years without a problem. There are a few that happen occasionally throughout the entire town, but it's not that often. Especially with our experience there in Stardust Hills, with the homes that are there, and with the Y system that has been installed. The town of Cloverdale accepted the water and sewer system as installed in Stardust Hills when they accepted it a number of years ago after Invest Putnam Inc. purchased the property out of bankruptcy. And we did certain things at that time as a corporation. Specifically, we replaced the pumps in 2 lift stations at no cost to the town of Cloverdale. Don Thomas, who was the town utility manager at that time, helped install those pumps. So there was an agreement made. Now, there are hundreds of lots in Stardust Hills that are unsold at this time that have the clay tile crossover dual lot accompaniment on them. This type of ordinance, if passed to apply to new construction, new subdivisions, new areas, is one thing. But to go back and say, if there's not a house there, you've got to replace this. If the road's there and paved, then we're either gonna have to bore under the road, which is not inexpensive, or we're gonna have to cut the road to put one in. I do not see the necessity of burdening prospective buyers of homes with this additional expense, with this type of ordinance. And this will help kill further development in Stardust Hills and in the town of Cloverdale. If you really want to stop progress, this is one way of doing it, because it ain't going to be cheap.
Roughly how long ago, Don, was the, roughly how long ago was the current, I guess, system accepted? You said it's been several years ago. Just curious how long ago it was.
Well, when Invest Putnam Inc. purchased the property out of bankruptcy, the original developer went broke. Indiana National Bank wrote off $1.3 million that they had loaned them to put in this water, sewer system, roads, et cetera, et cetera. We had to do a lot of remedial work on all of those utilities for the town to take them over. That occurred around 1985. 84 is when we bought it out of bankruptcy. 85, 86 is when some of these things were accomplished. Reed Priest was our attorney at that time. He's been deceased now over 20 plus years, but he did an outstanding job for the town of Cloverdale and our corporation in particular. He put together the group of 27 Putnam County businessmen that bought that property out of bankruptcy. The weeds were shoulder high. There was 4 foot of muck in the swimming pool. There was raw city water running down the road. The town would not fix it because there was a previous agreement with the original developer that he would take care of the maintenance of water and sewer. And the town board said, well, he'll take care of that. 2 years, your water ran down the road. We fixed the hydrant and stopped the leak. That is, Invest Putnam Inc. fixed that leak. And that was one of the things we had to do for the water system, just one. But there's hundreds of lots, and we now have almost 400 residents in Stardust Hills that utilize this sanitary sewer every day without problem. And if we say, you got clay tile there, tear it out, replace it.
We're not saying that, Don.
You are if there's not a home on that lot.
That is correct. How many lots do you think have clay tile going to them that's not being used now?
I have about probably between 450 and 500
It's not being
It's
used.
not in use right now?
Vacant lots.
are vacant lots, because that water and sewer system are in 2 areas that have not yet been recorded plats. But the water, sewer system, and road cuts are already there.
But how many feet of laterals do you have
Oh, God.
no. On a vacant lot that's never been developed? How deep in the lot would you have gone with the lateral to begin with?
The lateral doesn't go all the way onto the lot.
Right.
It
So we're
only
only talking
crosses the
about-
roadway
Right.
and is stubbed off with a Y
Right.
to service 2 lots on the park, because the water system is installed on one side of the road, and they have a crossover already installed in most cases. Then the sewer on the opposite lot line, because the sewer is on the other side of the road, has a lateral going under the road with a Y to service 2 lots on the far side of the road. Pardon me? Or 50 feet or more. Some cases more, some cases less.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong, I could have swore last meeting you mentioned the number 21 vacant lots. Something like that nature.
That was a specific project
Okay.
that I had that is now dead, and part of the reason it's dead is because of this proposed ordinance and/or his apparent desire to have plastic pipe all the way for individual homes, which is, that might be something that's required in Michigan, but it wasn't required here when these sewers were put in, and the ones that are in and are connected are working fine.
I just did a quick search, and this is not scientific in any way, but I just went to the first 4 that I came to, it said lifetime of clay sewer pipe. 50 to 60 years, 40 to 70 years, 50 to 75 years, 50 years. We're at 38 years right now.
Well, we're at 38 from when they bought it, not from when it was originally put in, correct?
Yeah, I don't know when they put it down.
I'm
So
sorry.
how long before the group you told us purchased it was the original put in?
73.
Oh,
4.
God.
So that's even older.
So you remember 1985,
Probably.
1973 or 4?
Well, the originals were put in the mid-70s, the late 70s.
So right now, we're in that.
We're not.
We're in that. I mean, that's the reason, I mean, that's the reason farm tile, they've all went away from clay and go to plastic now. It's just the lifespan of it.
If you're referring to the group that we spoke to on the phone about the development, there was, I left that conversation feeling like they were happy with what they were getting coming to quote.
No,
Yeah, but it had nothing to do with this or
Well,
that. Nothing to do.
you don't know,
Well-
because they backed out.
Yeah,
And they can say one thing to you and another thing that comes out of the body.
yeah.
Maybe his loan officer did not allow him to go out of state, I don't know. But I can tell you that as a prospect, it's a dead issue.
We are aware.
Well, if we went out and removed all of those laterals and capped those off on the main, that might take care of a lot of our infiltration coming from Stardust Hills, mightn't it? And at that point, yeah, we don't know, but that would also take care of this issue, because then new tap fees will have to be paid.
You're saying go through and
That in
replace all
itself
the
would not be a
connections
cheap
with plastic.
process.
Cap them all
Yeah.
at the main. Because they're not being used.
It's just-
They could be broken clay on them.
Yeah.
What is that, towns?
Under the road, it is
Responsibility?
under the road to
To the, yeah, with the right of way.
the, yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, if at any time, any of these roads are scheduled to be repaved, that would be the time to go in and replace all the laterals with PVC. Because then you're not, when you repave it, you're not.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, right now, the only time we're talking about this fee is a reconnector or new build. And, correct?
A reconnect, connector, I do know.
Yeah. Clint, I mean, there's no question clay tile has a lifespan.
Mhm.
Although in a new subdivision, that is actually a little different because they've just got the access.
Correct. But I'm talking about I get the access fee, but I'm talking about the difference between clay and plastic. Would either be a reconnect or a
Yeah,
rebuild.
I don't think it was the intent that if you sell your house,
Yes, correct.
Then they have to
That's what I mean,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
what I mean, yeah. So do we have any sort of figures, say, clay tile fails versus plastic tile? I mean, obviously, it's probably gonna be a lot cheaper plastic wise, but do we have any sort of figures that back that up?
for what?
So Don's point is it's not a big issue right now because we don't have, other than the infiltration, which there's no question there's that. But to go out and replace a clay tile right now versus going out and replacing a plastic tile, what's easier, what's more cost effective?
Well, the cheapest is exactly what Don just said, is just let somebody hook up to a clay tile that already exists.
That all, but has infiltration and things of that nature.
But I think we all know that, well, we know clay tile
Yeah.
fails much at a much greater level than.
It's already to the age of that.
It's already the age where it's failing because you're 40 to 50 years.
I mean, if it didn't cost, ultimately, we'd love to just replace everything, every clay in the entire town with plastic.
Yeah.
But that's just not
It's not
reasonable. This just potentially be an opportunity to gradually go that direction of eliminating all clay.
How many times in the last 3 years would someone have had to replace their clay tile?
Richard?
I can tell you that in Stardust Hills for sanitary sewers, on these crossovers that have been replaced with plastic in the last 5 years, less than a handful in the last 5 years.
So it's really not that big of an issue.
So, the assumption
Yeah.
that these laterals are the cause of a lot of infiltration, I question that. I don't know that it does, I don't know that it doesn't. But in certain areas of Stardust Hills, flow meters could be installed to determine, because I've got manholes all over the place. I've got them in the woods, I've got them in the hayfields. I've got them all over the place that were installed years ago. But flow meters could be installed to determine if there is infiltration in this particular area or that particular area.
Richard, he asked you, how many do you have roughly, you think?
Oh, how many have failed and
Failures.
been replaced? But I don't know a number exactly, but to me, there's a difference between sewer failing and.
Infiltration.
Exactly, I mean, just because it's.
I can assure you, there's infiltration everywhere.
Absolutely.
No, my point was, how many times in the last few years would this, if this ordinance is in place, would someone have to replace the tile? Meaning, I mean, really, if you're building a new home,
You're gonna do it
you
anyway.
want PVC. You're not gonna build a new home and then use that clay tile.
How many reconnects roughly do you do a month, year, roughly?
Very few.
Very few. So really, I mean, new builds, they're gonna want it either way.
You dig down 4 feet, and the temperature at 4 feet depth is constant year-round in this area. It's constant. For the most part, the clay tile itself is in excellent condition. The part that may fail
It's all the bells.
over time is the gasket
Yeah.
at the joints.
Because stuff grows into them
Pardon
and
me?
cracks. Stuff grows into them, the roots grow into them, and they get cracked. If they weren't installed properly or well, then you would invite roots, and roots cause
You'll
problems.
more likely get in at the junction as opposed to cracks.
No, not where you connect to.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
talking about.
yeah, that's not
The junctions.
Yeah.
So,
But the clay tile itself,
I mean,
Clay's got a question on that.
Can the ordinance just require that if there's ever a tile repair or failure, that it must be replaced with PVC at that time and not have to worry about dealing with everything?
well, so right now, it doesn't deal with everything other than a reconnect or a new build. So we're not saying if you have clay tile in your home right now, you've got to go replace it. It's, you build a new home, it's got to be PVC. Or like in Don's case, it's a vacant lot that has nothing sitting on it now. It has a sewer to it that is clay. And then you go put a new home on it. We would require it be replaced with PVC.
There's a test, like a pressure test or something that's done at the time when you tap in to determine that the integrity of the pipe is still good all the way to the house. Because if there is a test and we test it every time somebody taps in and it's clay and it's working, you don't have to dig it up and replace it, right? If it's not, if it doesn't pass the test, then hey, homeowner, you gotta dig this up and put in PVC because it's broke somewhere. Is there a test like that, Richard?
Yeah, I suppose you could, pressure test them, you just have to be able to block it off, plug it really well. You'd have to dig it up in the main, put a plug in it.
Which would be substantial cost.
By the time you do that, you might as well just dig
you're
it up.
gonna do that for every lot. Hell, we might as well dig it up and put in a new one.
I mean, you
Go
could
through all
possibly,
that,
the smoke
but
test would
it's the-
possibly tell you too.
It's,
Well,
when
the
you're
smoke
talking
test would
about
tell you
individual lot
after
owners and
the
builders,
conditions, if there was-
that's one thing.
The smoke would.
When you're talking about a tract builder.
Yeah.
Or a developer to come in and buy 100 acres or 300 acres and put in numbers of homes per year. Back in the day, before we had the crash of '08, I was putting in 14 to 20 plus homes per year, more than one a month. And that's how we got to almost 400. Since '08, it ain't been fun. It's been a damn tough road to hoe and to be in the home business. 4 out of 5 manufacturer dealers in the state of Indiana throughout the country are gone and are never coming back. Half of the manufactured housing builders are gone and are never coming back. The tract builders after '08 stopped building, sold off subdivisions and quit for 4 or 5 years. The last couple of years, interest rates have been down, business has been good. But today, it's changing. It's almost 7% for a home loan today, and you better have a good credit score to get one. But you're not seeing if you want the development to develop and have homes come in and new people to come in, they will do it if it is economically possible to do. But if it ain't, everyone else will.
Jason, would you clean up some of that language for us and bring us back next month?
Yeah, I'm gonna throw two things out at you. Could we remove the rates and the charges into its own ordinance
The rates and the charges.
and separate it from how we're gonna deal with,
The plastic.
correct? Because we really need to, I mean, I know we don't have it done for tonight, but we really need to start collecting from the other developer down there on, he's already paid for tap fees on water. But I think the initial intent was to collect $500 from him through an access fee.
For him.
Well, I mean, I think it should be for anybody. That's just, we don't have it in any type of ordinance form. Actually, we talked about it, and I should have done it, we could have done a resolution, but I thought, well, let's just see what we do with this ordinance. And this can hold till, I don't think it's a huge issue to hold until next month, but I know he's anxious to pay it, and we're anxious to collect his money, and
Here's my 2 cents, and then I'll make a motion. We're at a minimum 45 years that clay tile's been in there. We know it has a lifespan, that's why they quit using it in farm fields. I motion, we pass the ordinance as far as reconnects and new builds be PVC, and we put the fees in a different ordinance.
Do I have a second?
I have a question before I vote on this. That still leaves in limbo the vacant lots.
No, any reconnect or new build has to be PVC.
What do you mean
It's
by?
already built, it's one thing.
Well, I understand,
Mean
but
the house, or the construction of the home, rebuild.
the reconnect, what I'm saying, reconnect or new build. So vacant lots that are sitting there, if they're clay tile, they need to be replaced. If they're reconnecting to our sewer.
But you're not talking about a situation where I study my house, you live
No,
next.
no, reconnects on vacant lots or new builds need to be PVC. That's my motion.
Shouldn't that verbiage,
The vacant lot verbiage should be in there,
Let us take that and tweak these,
the verbiage.
yeah, and then, because I think we're all on the same page on that. Let's tweak these and come back with a final product. And maybe even get them out to you beforehand, so you can review them beforehand, so we can,
Do any change.
yeah, and then vote on the final product at the next meeting.
I think this intent is what you're
Yes,
saying.
exactly.
But I don't disagree, we could probably change a couple things to clear that
Yeah.
it's not when properties change hands.
Yeah.
While we're on this, and talking about this, in the recorded plats of Stardust Hills, I have less than 100 vacant lots that I own and control at this time. There are a few individually owned lots, but very few of them are individually owned. The platted area is where the paved roads are installed. And that's where it would be a major cost to replace with PVC, to replace the tile. The second issue that comes up with this is we have had for years a crossover with then coming up to a riser with a double saddle for water meters. Is that also objectionable?
It is not in our ordinance.
I was gonna say, I thought we talked about the double saddles a few months ago.
That's pretty common with water.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the new subdivision, that's how it's designed.
For the sake of time, going back, if we can get this updated out to the council members
Yeah.
prior to the next meeting.
Period.
Okay, if we're gonna install that, delay this, table this,
Yep.
do you feel comfortable us allowing water to be turned on in the subdivision, even without those sewer tap, or sewer access fees paid?
So are we talking about subdivisions in general or a specific?
Specifically, because those are gonna be.
We're talking about no.
Wasn't that already, we already passed that?
That was just on sewer. That's the one we reduced the fee, because I'm sorry, that was just on water, because he paid for all of that, infrastructure.
Oh, I thought.
So this is just sewer only, which he's paid for all of it as well.
Mhm.
It's not his fault that we don't have our stuff together, so I make a motion to
I-
turn it on.
I mean, it would just allow us to,
He's got to follow whatever ordinances are in place.
well, the problem is the ordinance today would have said we were responsible for putting that sewer from the tap to the, well, it's actually not, because it's not even a main there, so let me.
So it's all new, really, the new subdivision, until he turns it over, it's still private. So,
There are no tap fees to be paid at this time.
right.
So essentially, when he turns it over, whatever ordinance we have in place, he's responsible.
Right.
Because right now, it doesn't matter.
I think the access fee, he's anticipating that, and that's still
It just all has to pass inspection before we take it over.
But when we do take it over, he's responsible for whatever our fees are, or whatever we've negotiated.
Correct.
Our fees are.
Now, the only thing is, though, it's possible they start selling homes, and there are people living in these homes that would have never paid an access fee, and we won't have owned the infrastructure yet. For that matter, just since I've been here, we assumed the infrastructure at Whispering Winds, and we've had people living on those streets and using that water and sewer for just years and years and years.
Could you just notify the developer that upon sale, we're gonna assess each new owner and the access fee of $500, whatever the fee is? Because it's not gonna be a problem then, because it's not out of their pockets. Just so that he's notified.
Basically,
the new owner.
I think he anticipates paying.
Oh,
himself, but
This is all one ordinance, right?
I think we could take that out. I just need to, he's really anxious because he needs to know what he needs to pay the town. And I don't have anything really that I can show him.
essentially what Jason was going to do was take the pavement in one ordinance and the clay plastic side in another.
Right, and we don't have that.
Yeah.
Correct, and he's anxious to give us an answer if, I mean, maybe you don't vote, but do you think that it's okay to go ahead and that he should expect $500 when we do it on this ordinance, and he could.
And that's what's right now. So it's not.
That is upon custom, but we would still go ahead and turn water on.
Yes.
Okay. I think that's a fair thing to do. And I think it benefits us as well.
Well, we've already approved the $500.
It's already done.
You just know, now you know how to enforce it.
Just now, he's responsible for the
Well, did we, well, with the fee, we're gonna have to have an ordinance, because we have to advertise that ordinance after the fact. I would just, in good faith, I can let him know that that is an intent, but there's nothing been voted on. I mean, if you're comfortable with that,
I think the three of us are. That would pass it.
that, obviously no decision would be made, but. Yeah, had all of it been adopted at the same time, would have meshed together. And I just didn't get that consideration as being part of needing to mesh with that. So
Right.
I think we're closer.
Okay, you're done with ordinance 2022-6 for tonight?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Sorry.
Ordinance 2022-11.
This was introduced last month. It's electronic funds and transfers. It allows me to basically pay bills and do things on ACH instead of through paper checks and snail mail.
What was the reason why we didn't approve it last month?
Requires a second reading.
Oh, okay. I make a motion to approve that.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. New business, Stardust Hills, HOA.
We just want to announce we'll be doing our election next Sunday, so we may have a new board starting November 1st. So you might see a couple new faces. We have 4 seats open. That's all we have.
Plain words gave us only 10 minutes a day shopping to a break.
Okay, farm ground bids. I believe Kelly discussed with me that we would possibly do a longer-term contract, and we would also submit for bids this fall as opposed to waiting till spring. And we talked, what, 3 years?
Council asked me in the spring when we put this on, it was brought up that you wanted to address it in the fall to give farmers opportunity to go ahead and, for planning purposes, to be able to do that. And also a longer term was discussed, and there was different year amounts thrown out there, so that's why it's back on the agenda right now. And in your packets, I just gave you a sampling of what was sent out earlier in the spring this year. I mean, it's just so you have it, but yeah, if you wanted to do that, put it out for bid, you would have to let me know, and I could advertise it and get a new packet put together, but I would need to know what your intentions are.
Thoughts?
My opinion is bidding it whenever is fine, but I mean, if you look back to 2015, 16, people were paying $5.25 for cash rent, and then it went to $200. I don't think we want to lock ourselves in a long-term deal by any means.
I can sympathize with that. So would you like for Kelly to go ahead and advertise this
Advertise, yeah.
for November?
Yeah. That gives them time to get their inputs for next year. So I make a motion to bid it for November and not lock into any long-term contracts.
Okay, do I have a second?
So 1 year contract.
Yeah.
All in favor? Aye.
I'm sorry, who seconded that?
I did.
Okay, thank you.
Old business, adoption of the hearing for 2023 budget. Any discussion?
Make a motion to adopt it.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
There's 2 copies in there, and if you could please mark your vote. That's a form prescribed by the state, and so you have to sign it and also mark how you voted. Please, thank you.
Flood hazard ordinance.
This was in your packets last month as well. This is it's been a pretty good countywide clear, basically, where everybody's participating. Correct.
I'm sorry.
This is the flood ordinance. This is the one, the flood hazard.
That was brought to council last
Correct.
last month, and it was tabled.
Yeah. I think you were wanting to see if everybody else signed on, because every community in Putnam County was going to basically adopt the same ordinance. Do we know if that happened?
I haven't heard anything about that.
No, I mean, that's why we take it last month, because we didn't want to be the only ones that did it.
Yeah.
How do we find that out?
I was assuming it's Lisa. Do you know where that came from?
You? No, you gave me a copy. I'm not sure who sent it originally.
This has been so far off my radar.
I think, no, it's the county commissioner.
I kind of feel like that came from Lisa.
I don't know, it has so many, it's like all.
Brandon, do you know if any other communities that have adopted this?
Roosevelt hasn't.
I'll make a motion to table it until we find out more information on other towns adopting the ordinance.
Do you have a second?
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Sidewalk quotes.
I did get a second quote at the last meeting. I presented a quote to you for $14,660, and that did include $1,800 of the stump removal that we'd already approved. So I did get a second quote, substantially higher, of $39,805.
And we'd already approved the stump removal, so you take 1,800 off of 14.
Correct.
Do you have a time frame when that will be completed?
The quote for $39,000, he thought it might not happen until spring. Mayhew that gave the initial quote thought he might be able to get to it this fall. Although we're starting to get into colder weather, and he is in Florida at the moment.
And this is just for the north side?
This is just the north. It is the 5th Street to Main Street, north side, 4 foot wide, 4 inches, and 4 approaches. So there are 3 driveways and 1 alley is what I'd call it. So it would be concrete. from the road to that sidewalk. We had held off on the stump removal until we determined what we were going to do with the concrete. Or if we were going to do concrete.
Can we take the stump out and table this till spring?
I guess we do whatever you want us to do.
Is there any liability issue removing the stump and leaving a giant stump?
Well, yeah, same sidewalk is still there, so.
So the sidewalk's there, the stump is not gonna impede the sidewalk at all?
Remove the stump.
Removal of the stump is not gonna impede the
The
sidewalk?
the sidewalks already buckled in places because of the trees that were there. That's why the trees had to come down, because of the safety hazard to any pedestrians walking on it, or anybody that matter.
Could we get it repaired this fall?
I would assume so, yes. I'm not sure it makes sense to repair if we're going to replace at some point. I talked to Kelly about different options for where that can be paid from. I think we talked about like rainy day, and
Yeah, we're about out of money in those funds.
so there is some other funds if you want to.
Rainy day.
Make a motion to move forward with the removal of the stumps, and let's bring this back up late winter in regards to the sidewalk repair.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. Employee handbook?
I did make the changes that were requested. On page 22, I changed the language of the military and reserve service in the first paragraph. And on page 17, the overtime and emergency call-in, how those were calculated in the second paragraph, those were changed per council's request. I did have one other thing that just came to my attention. I would like to add a policy, some kind of, a few lines of policy to protect the town against the appearance of ghost employment. As you're aware, town employees, once a year, we meet with the school and we do service learning. They do the service learning project and the town employees help out for that. And that is prescribed by state law, but you're supposed to have, the town is supposed to have a policy basically in place, allowing your employees to help out for another government or a charity organization, yes. And so I just thought if we could include a line or two in the handbook, that would, just saying that, something like, let's see. The council acknowledges or approves town employees volunteering for a 501c3 or other government as approved or planned by department heads. That would, I think that would be a written policy that would,
I was
meet
gonna
the
ask,
requirements.
does this have to go to you for review?
We've already talked
I
about
asked.
it.
Okay.
The only thing to it, it does need a time frame. There's a requirement for a time frame, so I didn't know if you wanted to say that, you approve one day a year or whatever.
How many days do you have to do?
The service learning project, it's typically about half a day, I guess, one day.
Well, we could say as approved by council or by department heads,
Not to exceed.
or not to exceed, yeah.
However, I just know what they said it had to have a time frame, so I'm not sure what.
Well, if you're doing it half a day, 24 hours now, not to exceed 24 hours per year. I make a motion to add that and then approve the changes requested last month.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Guardrails? Okay. Anything else, Jason?
Get me out of here.
Anything else, Kelly?
I'm done, thank you.
Do you have something?
My questions have been answered. Thank you.
Okay. All right, call this meeting adjourned. There will be a short before the end of the
I'm gonna be glad to do that. Click that for ring.